When I first saw the trailer for the Willow TV show and I saw him with his staff and I saw it light up, I thought, I have to have that staff, but I want to make it LARP safe. I like making my projects accessible to you, so we are working with things that in general you would find at a hardware store, or you might have to go online and order. I have a list of the components that we are going to try to use for this crazy endeavor in the description below. If you have any questions that I don't cover in this video, please do ask them in the comments. I do try to get to them, and I actually enjoy answering the questions. I am very nervous about trying this.
You lack faith in yourself.
Let's hop into the chaos. The point of Willow's staff looks like it reaches just a few inches above his head. I want to keep some space for padding. I'm cutting the 3/4 PVC core to 67 inches, but it looks like I still need to trim off a little more. Now it's time to shape the staff. Willow's staff has a crescent bend starting at his shoulder. Here I am using a heat gun to soften the PVC and bend it into shape. Be careful not to melt the pipe too much, otherwise you can weaken the core and it can even break. Take your time with this part. That's the shape we want. There it is. There it is. All right, we got our shape. Finally got our shape. Sanding is key for priming so that the foam and the adhesive bond. Now, what I want to do is wire this up so that we can have, there's supposed to be a gem right here, so that I want an on and off switch about here, and I want to be able to recharge this thing. My original plan was to dismantle a USB power bank and fit it inside the PVC core. Oh, but let me show you, oh dear viewer, how poorly that would work. So let's pretend that goes in there. Okay, and then what will happen is there will be wires that little drilled in here, fed in here, and then when you recharge it, what can happen here is then this will be your screw-on cap, and then to keep things safe, because you don't want this punching through your foam, you always have some kind of rubber cap, which this will fit on. I don't want to do the gluing and stuff. It just barely fits. It does fit on. I'll demonstrate. It'll be on later. Don't worry. So that's going to go on that, and then that whole piece is going to unscrew like this. Okay. I'm sure this is all going to get even more complicated when more foam is involved. The thing is, there's no room for wire and the battery pack going down here. Can we do this? Will this still fit like this instead of drilling? Oh! Nope, lost it. This is getting weaker the more I screw with things. I do have a backup, but this is getting bad. Wires are too thick to then bend back into the pipe, and we can't feed them out and over because we need our screw top, and we need the screw top because safety. We don't want to just have a pop on and off plug because it could pop off during a battle and then you have exposed hard plastic, which could hurt someone. So we're trying to make this safe. Remember, safety, safety, safety. I need to strip the wire down to something thinner like this. And one thing I wish I had on hand, which I now will have on hand for here on out, because I'm going to get into more electronics with future projects, is to have just, you know, small electrical wire around. The dang USB end is getting in the freaking way. I want this to be rechargeable. God, my wires are getting bent so much. This just keeps flopping back and forth, and honestly, I regret now taking the plastic casing off of this. I have another one. I think I'm going to switch out. I couldn't use a thicker pipe for the core because it would mean that I would have to use more foam, making it thicker and heavier, which nobody wants in battle. Over a few days and
failed experiments, I ended up creating a detachable power bank, building the attachments around the power bank itself since it already has its own case.
I was going to work with this, and then after ordering it, I realized that I needed something to be able to convert the 9 volts to 5 volts, otherwise I'm going to fry this thing. It will fry. I decided not to run with this because it was just getting real fragile. I'm worried about it getting broken. I have this big honking guy. This with something like this sword. This sword actually feels almost like the weight of this. So it probably won't be that bad. So yeah, I've felt LARP weapons heavier than this. Especially when you're dealing with any of these cast foam weapons. This is going to screw into this. Those get screwed into each other. This top is going to get glued permanently to the staff. That way what's happening is the part that gets screwed on and off is from here on. Okay, boom. I do want to keep this intact. I think it's just a good idea to keep it intact. You know, this way too, if this ever just dies, I can switch this out and we're good. And then this will sit in there like that. I want a little more space in here because this only goes as far as that, and that's still a little deep for me. I can still reach that and all, but I'm not thrilled. I would like it to be actually, I don't know. I mean, being able to switch all that out, what I could do is I could resin that all together and just keep this all like this. I mean, it'd be nice and stable, and that is a good thing.
Now it was time to feed the wire through the core and get to the soldering.
That's forevers.
Here I am securing the wire to the core via Gorilla Tape, stripping my wires before soldering, and of course, heat shrinking the wire.
This is for winterizing your pipes. It's what a lot of old school LARPers and people still use. These do tend to start breaking down sooner. Though, I've had a couple, yeah, they'll last at least 2 to 3 years. Up to here and up to there. I'm more of an eyeballing it kind of girl. This is running at a 1/2 inch. If you get another bit of that, it's just going to be really bulky in your hand, and I have never had a staff that thick. Even this, which is a harder foam than this feels like a 1/2 inch of foam, definitely. This actually feels a little thicker. So think about that.
I am using contact cement to glue the foam to the core. I honestly wouldn't use anything else. Other adhesives, including spray adhesives, end up pulling away from the core. Be sure to coat both the PVC and the foam with a light layer of glue. Don't use too much. Since the pipe wrap doesn't fully fit 3/4 inch pipes, I cut an extra strip and glued it on. I am sanding the top of the PVC to prevent sharp edges from cutting through the rubber and foam padding. This is the rubber tube that I am heating up to attach to the tip of the staff so that it has a little flexibility and keeps the PVC core from ripping through the foam and injuring someone. I ended up finding half of a pool noodle in my craft room, and I'm using it for the top because I plan to do a lot more carving there and need a little extra padding.
Nope, not a fan.
Before I can continue working on the top of the staff, I needed to attach the LED lights.
We have a good connection, yes! From the packaging to my wife's 3D printer, and it came with all this lovely packaging here. That is the same kind of foam that is.
You can find this white open cell foam at shipping supply stores or online. Now to really get into the shaping the top of the staff. Here I am using a heat gun to shrink the foam more. Realizing that I was going to end up building out the foam more, I needed to create space for the crystal that sits on the roots/vines of the staff.
See this stuff, you still kind of see the lights through it, and I don't want to double it even more. I don't know. I'm not sold.
I ordered LED foam, which a lot of cosplayers use in their costume designs to let light shine through the foam. However, I didn't like that you could still see the individual lights through the foam. And the thicker the foam, the more it dimmed the lights. I loved how white open cell foam dispersed the light. Here I am cutting out facets of the glowing gem that I would sand and blend into the shape I wanted. Still, the top of the staff ended up a little thicker than I would have liked. At the same time, this is a LARP weapon, and erring on the side of thick for safety is better versus being an exact match to the original prop. This was my first time working with foam clay that was for cosplay and not that Crayola stuff. This is sandable and paintable. Be advised, it can be brittle if you don't use a flexible sealer. I'm using it to create the vines that weave up and over the crystal. It's starting to look like the thing! Of course, foaming up the removable power bank exactly like the rest of the staff. I really like what this does for seams. It's very good. Loving it. I almost feel like I'm getting little extra reinforcement. Creating a little wood grain with the wood burning tip of the soldering iron. Sadly, this is where I learned that the cured foam clay is quite resistant to the wood burning tool. This is open cell foam for windows or insulation that comes in a rolled tube form. I cut it in half so it would lay flat on the core. Again, contact cement is your best friend for attaching foam to foam. I ran out of contact cement, grabbed the 77 spray to get by on this part. But I will show you how that was a huge mistake later on in this video. I am leaving a little bit of a gap from the top section of the staff because I'll be gluing leather there for a hand wrap. Using a little clay foam to fill in the gaps. Here I noticed that the clay foam pulled away when it dried, only in this section for some reason. No worries, I just used some flex glue to fill in the gap. Silicone or any other flexible adhesive would work as well. Flex Seal! I was not able to get a hold of clear Plasti-Dip in the stores nor online in time for this project. Also, I couldn't find Lexcel for some reason in the hardware stores up here in the PNW. What's up with that? So I decided to try clear Flex Seal. What I'm trying to do here is create the bluish green stone color of the crystal when it's not lit up. So I'm mixing green and blue resin dye so that the green light can still shine through. I wish I could have gotten the color of the liquid rubber darker, but I was worried about it suddenly becoming too opaque and dimming the lights. It takes at least 8 hours for Flex Seal to become dry to the touch and up to 24 to 48 hours to fully cure. Now to Plasti-Dip the rest of the staff. I chose spray instead of thinning the stuff that comes in the can because, time and convenience. I brought this inside to dry because it's cold in the garage, and I'm noticing, look at this is already prying up, and I can 100% bet you, see, versus this awesome stuff here. This here was all contact cement. I 100% bet you every part that's pulling up like this is from the 77 spray. I've used 77 spray in the past, but it's actually a really bad idea. I think that is the last time I'm ever going to use 77 spray for any kind of LARP weapon making. Yeah, that's a nope. Hoping this is going to solve my problem without having contact cement. I am painting the undertones in the staff with a dark brown acrylic. Once dry, going back through with a lighter brown and sweeping through with a dry brushing technique. Because I coated the whole crystal part of the staff with Flex Seal, I learned that it was very resistant to acrylic. So I am using a hairdryer to dry the paint before it repels from itself. Finally, a black wash over the whole thing to make the details pop. And some Plasti-Dip clear coating spray to protect the paint from UV and chipping. Oh, look, another lesson before us. Plasti-Dip and Flex Seal do not get along. You can see here that it just totally resisted the Plasti-Dip and peeled off, taking the paint with it. No fear, my fellow crafter. I just sanded the rubber off on the tendrils only and repainted them directly on the bare foam. Then I resealed just the top with more Flex Seal. For the finishing touch, it was time to wrap the leather around the handle and disguise the button. I couldn't find exact matches in the color and sizing of the leather strapping, so I just cut what I could find in half and just lived with the color not being a perfect match. Again, ye old contact cement is your best friend for this part. I did find some more in my garage. However, hot glue worked best for the cloth braided trim. Well, that project was a chaos monster with an AC of probably 18. Things I learned during this project. 2 weeks is not enough for all the experimentation and waiting for things to come in the mail for a project of this complexity. Foam clay is awesome, though it does dry a little hard, so I wouldn't use it on like a whole LARP weapon. Instead, I'd use it on like little details, you know? Also, foam clay doesn't carve well with heat tools. It is better to just carve it while it's still wet. I do like that, on that note, I do like that it does stay wet for a decent amount of time, so you don't have to rush while you're sculpting. Never use 77 spray. No matter how convenient it seems, it'll betray you. Flex Seal does not play well with others. I think I would have preferred to use Plastidip and Lexel, but I'm digging how durable and water resistant it is right now, so I don't know. I might consider using it as a final sealant in future projects. As for improvements, if I could do this project all over again, I would try to order a white pool noodle for the top part of the staff, and then attach the LEDs directly to the PVC core, and then carve the top with a wood burning tool or a Dremel to create that thinner crystal than this old big thing. I think I would also try to use a pool noodle for the rest of the staff and take more time carving all of the vines instead of gluing each vine on, which took a lot of time anyway. So I don't know. I also feel like the vines are probably going to be prone to kind of peeling off in the future, but we'll see how they hold up. Next video, we will see if the staff passes a LARP safety check. Thank you for coming on this crazy adventure with me. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for future videos. Take risks. It's okay to fail and learn. Happy crafting, and I will see you soon.